On another clip that is making its way around Fox News, Donald Trump talks again about invoking the Insurrection Act against liberal or democratically run cities. And he is claiming that half of U.S. presidents have used it. He calls it unquestionable power. However, of course it's questionable. The courts can still look at what he's doing with it, and they can decide whether or not what he's attempting to do falls within the criteria of the Insurrection Act. But he also said half. Half of U.S. presidents have used it. Well, Donnie, your math is a little wrong, but we know how dumb you are, so that's not surprising. This is the same person who says things like he's going to lower prices by 1,500%, which would mean you'd get a rebate every time you purchase it and businesses would go under. Well, that might explain his bankruptcies. But when he said almost half, well, looking it up, not even anywhere close to half. There have been 45 people to hold the office of president. Now, half would have been 22 or 23 to invoke the Insurrection Act. No, 11 have invoked the Insurrection Act. And most of the time when it gets invoked, it is involving either protecting people, like with JFK and LBJ, using it during the Civil Rights Movement to help force desegregation, etc., and protect people on their way to school or whatever the case may be, because there was fears of people getting violent. Or you had George H.W. Bush invoking the Insurrection Act to quell the Rodney King protests in L.A. Nothing like what Donald Trump is attempting to do here. He is trying to say any sort of protest against him or any kind of city that stands opposed to him counts as an insurrection. He wants to redefine terms, and that, of course, isn't how we do things here. Donald Trump is way off when he says almost half. His math is wrong, and he really doesn't have this unquestionable authority. In fact, depending on how he uses the Insurrection Act, it may end up ultimately before the Supreme Court, and this Supreme Court may decide that the Insurrection Act is unconstitutional. That is an entire possibility. Now, I'm sure Donald Trump hasn't even thought about that, because he is convinced that this Supreme Court will side with him in all things. So Donald Trump says almost half, and like I said, that's not even close to the accurate number, but knowing how dumb Donald Trump is and some of the other math-related gaffes and goofs that he has made, that's not surprising. But the last time it had been invoked was during the Rodney King protests during the George H.W. Bush administration. Donald Trump probably will not invoke it. He's just trying to threaten with it to get his way.